Welcome to Rookie Aspirant. Okay, so today's explainer explores the bold, data-driven predictions for a 2026 Super El Nino and what this massive climate event actually means for global weather, and specifically India's agricultural stability. The data we're looking at today is both fascinating and highly consequential, so let's unpack exactly what the models are telling us. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover the 2026 climate warning, decode the Super El Nino, look at the threat to India's monsoon, the agricultural risks, lessons from past droughts, and finally, how to brace for the impact. Let's dive in. Section 1. The 2026 climate warning. What is truly fascinating here is the sheer statistical confidence on display. Looking at this NOA probability chart, notice how the red bars just completely dominate the timeline. There is an 82% chance of an El Nino emerging by July 2026. But look further to the right. There's literally a staggering 96% chance it persists right through the winter of 2026 into 2027. We aren't talking about a passing weather pattern here. The data suggest a sustained, dominant climatic force is locking in for the long haul. And this scientific consensus is echoed perfectly by Wilfran Mafuma Okia from the World Meteorological Organization, who notes that climate models are, quote, strongly aligned with high confidence. Now look, while media hype around impending Super El Niños can sometimes frustrate scientists due to the inherent uncertainties of forecasting, which is fair, we're impartially reporting here that current institutional models show highly unified predictions of a very strong event. The science is practically blinking red. Section 2. Decoding the Super El Nino. So check out this sea surface temperature forecast. It visually maps out the heat building in the central equatorial Pacific Ocean. You see that deep red band stretching across the water? That highlights the exact geographic zone where these dramatic thermal anomalies are taking place. It's essentially a massive engine of heat revving up right in the middle of the ocean, fundamentally altering the thermal dynamics of the entire planet. To really grasp the mechanics of this shift, we have to contrast normal conditions with El Nino. Normally, strong easterly trade winds act like a giant conveyor belt, pushing warm surface water toward Australia, which is what fuels those moisture-laden monsoons over South Asia. But during El Nino, those trade winds weaken. The conveyor belt basically stalls out, and that massive pool of warm water just drifts back eastward. This completely scrambles the normal precipitation patterns across the entire Indo-Pacific region. But we aren't just looking at a standard event here. A Super El Nino is explicitly defined by a temperature anomaly exceeding 2 degrees Celsius above the historical baseline in the Central Pacific, specifically the Nino 3.4 region. Just for context, a standard El Nino only requires a 0.5-degree anomaly. So a plus 2.0 degree shift, that's a massive deviation. And in a warming world, research shows the frequency and intensity of these extreme super events are projected to double. Section 3. Threat to India's monsoon. So what does this mean for India? Well, the India Meteorological Department projects the 2026 monsoon will only reach about 92% of the long-period average. To put that into perspective, instead of the normal 868 millimeters of life-giving rain, the subcontinent is expected to receive roughly 800 millimeters. This makes it one of the weakest initial monsoon forecasts we've seen in the last 26 years. When we compare the historical average to the 2026 forecast, the elevated risk is just stark. Typically, there's a 16% chance of a deficient monsoon season, but for 2026, it jumps up to a really worrying 35%. This statistical buffer rapidly shrinking means a direct threat to food supply chains and ultimately the prices we're all going to see at the grocery store. Section 4. Agriculture at extreme risk. Now, this impact isn't uniform across the country. If we zoom in like we're looking at a Google map of the region, you'll see significant spatial asymmetry. Research confirms that central and peninsular India are the exact pinpoints facing the most severe concentrated rainfall deficits. Meanwhile, parts of the Northwest show atypical responses, largely because they're modulated by a different weather pattern known as the Indian Ocean Dipole. But for the heartland of Indian agriculture, that map is glowing red with risk. Adding to this impending agricultural stress is the fact that the soil is already completely parched. Early 2026 delivered 60% below normal rainfall in just January and February. Then, NASA's GIST-TEMP data confirmed March 2026 as one of the hottest months ever recorded. The IMD even had to issue early heatwave alerts across crucial agricultural states like Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, and Madhya Pradesh. So the baseline conditions for the crops before the monsoon even arrives are already severely compromised. Section 5. Lessons from past droughts. History is simply not kind during these cycles. Looking at severe El Nino years like 1982, 2002, 2009, and the 2015 Super El Nino event, they consistently resulted in absolutely devastating droughts. I mean, in 2002, food grain output fell by a massive 18 million tons. 2009 saw the worst drought in nearly 4 decades, crippling sugarcane and rice production. The correlation between a warming Pacific and a thirsty India is historically undeniable. Section 6. Bracing for the impact. So, proactive adaptation is critical. A huge takeaway from the research is the urgent need to rapidly expand agricultural insurance coverage, specifically leveraging the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana to create a financial safety net before the crisis actually hits. The data tells us we have to shield the most highly vulnerable crops first, things like coarse cereals, pulses, and oilseeds from the coming dry spell. Policy absolutely needs to match the urgency of these meteorological models. With the science aligned, the models flashing red, and the historical risks laid bare, the massive climatic gears of 2026 are already turning in the background. If you found this explainer helpful, please subscribe for more such content. Because the ultimate question for policymakers, and really for all of us relying on this agricultural heartland, remains: when the rains fail, are we truly ready for the drought?